now that the New York Jets have officially hired Robert Saleh as their new head coach, and he's completed most of his staff, it's now time to transition away from talking about whether they made the right hire or not, and looking into what this means for the Jets as they continue to build their roster and especially move towards the 2021 NFL Draft. Now, I'm not always the biggest fan of hiring a defensive-minded head coach, with the whole purpose being if his offense does well, his offensive coordinator is going to leave. We're seeing that with Tennessee. Mike Vrabel's done a tremendous job with the Titans, but he lost Matt LaFleur. And then they replaced him with Arthur Smith. Now Arthur Smith is head coach. Now he's got to find his third coordinator. And so I think that's one of the things to kind of keep an eye on for the Jets is if this starts going well, which I think it has a chance to do, they're going to have to be replacing their offensive coordinator on a pretty regular basis. But irregardless, let's get into how this could affect how this coaching change and new schemes in that affect the New York Jets and their 2021 NFL Draft. Now, let's start on the offensive side first. And Robert Saleh, he comes from the San Francisco 49ers, and he brought with him a lot of the assistants from that team. And his new offensive coordinator is Mike LaFleur, who is the passing game coordinator for the San Francisco 49ers. Now, if the LaFleur name sounds familiar, Mike's brother Matt is the head coach of the Green Bay Packers. And so Mike LaFleur, when he comes here with the Jets, he's going to, he comes from the Shanahan tree, just like his brother Matt did. And so we have to assume, without seeing his offense out there, that he's going to run the Shanahan-style offense. And what does that mean? A lot of people might think, hey, this is a zone or a West Coast offense. And that's not the case. Kyle Shanahan, what type of offense if he runs a West Coast offense, and he'll probably laugh at you. He doesn't run a true West Coast offense. It is different. I guess we want to call it the Shanahan offense, whatever it might be. But the thing to kind of keep an eye on here is that zone running scheme, and that's going to be important. Now, speaking more about Mike LaFleur, their new offensive coordinator, here's a guy that's a former quarterback, played quarterback in college. He worked with the quarterbacks with the 49ers, and he was their passing game coordinator. So I have a feeling that a lot of the passing concepts that we saw with the 49ers, we're going to see a lot of that same stuff with the Jets. And so this offense, the Shanahan-style offense, it's built around deception. They are a team that runs a lot of motion. The 49ers were the team that ran the most motion out of any team in the NFL last year. The Jets were one of the worst, or one of the least motion teams. So they run a lot of motions, a lot of outside zone, and a lot of play action. They want the motion. They want play action to be a big part. So that's a whole misdirection and deception. They want to move guys to kind of get you guessing, to read defenses, read what kind of type of coverage you're in, but also, get your guys, linebackers falling one way and then you run the other way, or you do a play action. And so they're going to do that. They want to play fast. So let's talk about quarterbacks first and the Jets. Obviously, Sam Darnold is a big elephant in the room. What are they going to do with him? Now, I think Sam Darnold will do well with the Jets and in this new scheme. I think he's got the athleticism, he's got the arm strength, he's got enough short to intermediate accuracy that I think he'll do well. But it's all a matter of, do they think he's going to be a good fit? Do they want to move forward with him? I think if push came to shove, I think that they'll run with Sam Darnold. But I think the thing to kind of keep an eye on is BYU quarterback Zach Wilson. The Jets have the number 2 overall pick, and everyone and myself would have loved them to get Trevor Lawrence with that number 1 overall pick, but they don't have it. And Zach Wilson's a guy to kind of keep an eye on. I know he's not the biggest quarterback, being around 200 pounds, but he fits this offense very well. He ran an outside zone type scheme, not the exact same scheme, but a very similar scheme at BYU, where he was very effective using play action, coming off those outside zones. And even throughout this process, there's a lot of people that cover the 49ers and the NFL draft that talked about how 49ers would love to get Zach Wilson. Well, if the 49ers would love to get Zach Wilson, that only makes him a good fit with the Jets. So I think that's something to kind of keep an eye on for the 2021 draft. If they go quarterback with that number 2 overall pick. I do still think Justin Fields would do well within this offense, but keep an eye on Zach Wilson, who I think is a very good fit. Now, if we look at running backs, the thing about this offense is they want speed backs. It's a zone blocking scheme, and so they want those running backs to put a foot down and get upfield. If we think about the type of running backs that Shanahan has had success with, Devontae Freeman with the Falcons, not the biggest back, put a foot down and get upfield. You think Arian Foster, once again, just put a foot down and get upfield. Look at what the 49ers had. The 49ers had, they're big on getting guys with sub 4.4 40s. They had 4 running backs with the 49ers this past year that all ran in the 4.3s in their 40-yard dash. Mozart, Jeff Wilson, Tevin Coleman, they had Breda in the past. Those all guys that can get upfield in a hurry. And so I think that's something to kind of keep an eye on with the Jets. They don't really have any of those guys right now. LaMichael Pirrine's a solid back, but he's not a speed type guy. Maybe he could fill that Alfred Morris type role, but they don't want guys that kind of go laterally and shift and cut. They want guys that can get upfield and get upfield in a hurry. So when the draft comes, especially in those mid to late rounds, look out for the guys that are the fast backs, those sub 4.4 guys. And I think those are going to be some of the targets that the Jets go after. Another thing that fits in with this running game is a fullback. Kyle Shanahan's offenses always have a fullback, and even Mike LaFleur's brother Matt with the Packers, they drafted a guy in the 3rd round last year. Josiah DeGura was a tight end in college that they were going to move to fullback. So, and then the 49ers have Kyle Juszczyk, a guy. So kind of keep an eye on that. Maybe not a true 260-pound true fullback, but look at those tight end type guys that can kind of be moved around, kind of play out as an H-back, come back as a fullback. We saw DeGura last year with the Packers. That's another position that I think they're going to target somewhere in the draft, somewhere in free agency. Juszczyk, when Shanahan got hired with the 49ers, they signed Juszczyk to a big deal for a fullback. So kind of keep an eye on that. Offensive line-wise, like I mentioned, zone blocking scheme. They want athletes. They want guys who can move together and create creases in that. I think Mekhi Becton's going to be a good fit for what they have. I think George Fant, who's played in that zone blocking scheme before, he'll be good. I still am a fan of Alex Lewis. I think he'll have success there. Pat Elflein's a guy that they have at guard that's played in the system before in Minneapolis with the Vikings. So I think offensive line, I think they could maybe add a piece or two, and their general manager is always big on adding offensive linemen. So I don't think they're done there, but I feel very confident with their offensive line and with what they want to eventually do. Now, receiving-wise, this is where they're going to have to spend a lot of attention to. And if you look at the 49ers the last couple of years, they've added a lot of weapons early on. Deebo Samuel was a 2nd-round pick. Brandon Ayuk was a 1st-round pick. They were guys, they're not afraid to go out and get the guys that they want. And they're not these big basketball-style wide receivers. They're more, run after the catch, physical, almost, kind of like, running backs at the wide receiver position. And so I think Denzel Mims will fit well with what they want to do. I think they'll be able to mold him into what they want. I think Crowder will be serviceable in time. But kind of look at those yards after the catch type guys. They want to run a lot of crossing routes and stuff like that. So they want to get the guys in space, give them the ball, and get those yak yards. And then last thing when we talk about the offense, tight end is always a strong position. Kyle Shanahan had George Kittle, so there's only one George Kittle in the NFL, and I don't see them trying to find the next George Kittle. But Shanahan's also had success. They drafted Austin Hooper, who had success with the Falcons. He had Owen Daniels when he was with the Texans. The Jets have Chris Herndon, who's shown a lot of promise. I think they'll kind of roll with him, and if a guy that they like falls to them, they could go in that route, but just something to kind of keep an eye on. Now, defensively, you're going to see a big change. Robert Saleh, it's going to be his defense. He's bringing in Jeff Ulbrich, who is going to be his defensive coordinator. Ulbrich was with the Falcons this past year, running that same Seattle-style 4-3 under that Robert Saleh ran with the 49ers. So that's what they're going to move to. And this past couple of years under Greg Williams has always been a 4-3 defense type of guy. But they wanted the Jets and their coaching staff or whatever, they wanted to run a 3-4. And so Greg Williams did it just to do it. But they're going to move back to that 4-3 under. But it's got a lot of similar characteristics to a 3-4. Defensive line, you're going to have a 5 technique defensive end, so a strong side defensive end that's lined up, basically shading the outside of the offensive tackle. Kind of a bigger guy. I think a Henry Anderson, who's currently on their team, could fulfill that role. They're going to have a nose tackle that plays the 1 technique, shading the center, looking to kind of hold that gap. And then this is where you have your 3 technique. You think of the penetrators, the Warren Sapps, those type of guys. And I think Quinnen Williams is going to thrive in this role. Quinnen Williams kind of came on, especially there at the end last year. And I kind of thought they were kind of playing him a little out of position in the fact that they're trying to get him to kind of take on blocks and play through the linemen. I think put him at the 3 technique, getting him going up the field on 1 gapping, I think this is where they're going to unlock the potential with him. Now, one area that I think the Jets really need to go after is an edge pass rusher. In this 3-4, this 4-3 under defense, you have the Leo defensive end. That's that weak side defensive end. They want to line them up at like the 9 technique and just have them rush off the edge. And we look at what Robert Saleh, when he was with the 49ers, when they got Nick Bosa, when they got D Ford, and they got some of those finally edge type rushers, that's when those defenses really had a lot of success. So I think for this defense to kind of really get what they want, they need to up the defensive line. And you saw when Saleh first got hired, and they kind of struggled that first year. They didn't have a lot of talent. Then they got Nick Bosa in, and then they had Eric Armstead kind of turn it on, and then DeForest Buckner, finally got some help, and he had this huge year. I think that's what he wants out of this defensive line, and they've got 1 guy in Quinnen Williams. They just need about another 2 or 3 guys. So free agency, I think, is going to be big for them. I think they're going to draft a bunch of them in the 2021 NFL draft. Defensive backfield, once again, 3-4 cover 3 defense. So you think Seattle style, bigger, physical press man corners. They got Bryce Hall, they got Lamar Jackson, who were kind of mid to late round picks this past year. I think those guys fit. You don't need. It's nice to have a Richard Sherman. It's nice to have those type of corners, but you can find those in the mid to late round, and you don't need these total shutdown guys. So I think those guys, along with Bless Austin, I think will be serviceable. Once again, they could draft guys, but that's something to kind of keep an eye on. I actually don't mind this Jets secondary if they can get another better corner to go along with those 3 guys. They've got McDougal, who played in the system in Seattle and had success. They have Marcus May, who could play free safety. They drafted Ashton Davis, who fits well, who could play free or strong in this. I think they got some talent there. Now, they need help. They don't have a whole lot of blue chip talent on this defense, but they have pieces to make this defense work. And so I think just getting some more reinforcements along that defensive line, the 49ers didn't have the greatest secondary, but they had elite pass rushers that took the pressure off them. So if the Jets can find some talented pass rushers to kind of take some pressure off, they can slowly look to build up this defense in a different way. So I like this coaching staff. I like what they're doing. I think the biggest issue for the Jets is, do they have enough? They're going to have to build up. They're going to have to use all their draft picks. They're going to have to, maybe trade away Sam Darnold, get a couple more picks, and it's going to be a process. But I think if they can keep their offense, going, they've got the right fits there, and slowly build up this defense, the Jets are in a position, I think they can kind of turn this around, and definitely keep an eye on them moving forward.